What has been a sensational weekend. We've already seen a race victory in the qualifying race yesterday for Augusto Farfus Jr. for the BMW Team Schnitzer squad. And now he's got to do the hard work all over again for 18 laps of this epic circuit. Jake Sanson in the commentary box. Beside me is Tom Gaymore, looking fresh as a daisy and ready for action. This is going to be another epic GT race around Macau.
Yeah, I don't quite feel fresh as a daisy, but yeah, maybe it's because I haven't had a proper job yet. Augusto Farfus, what a job he did yesterday. Team Schnitzer and BMW. No, you know, they've won here before, is what I was trying to say, you know, and trying to take the crown away from Mercedes, who won here, of course, last year in the hands of Eduardo Mortara. And we saw Rob Huff trying to get another victory to his name in the WTCR race a few minutes ago. Will another master of Macau, Eduardo Mortara, be able to get another win to his name? He'll be going for 7 wins, and there he is, 7 wins around this incredible circuit. Quite a remarkable statistic, Jake.
Yep, 2 of them in the Formula 3 race, of course, and 4 of them so far have been in the GT race. He won last year's, of course. There's the Iron Man, Earl Bamber, getting himself ready for the action. From 5th position on the grid, the New Zealander, who over the last couple of seasons has just transformed himself into Porsche's latest golden boy, hasn't he? Started off in his career in Porsche Asia. They gave him a chance at Le Mans, and he has just been exemplary ever since. And he is now one of the he's one of the go-to guys at Stuttgart, isn't he? He's just an immense competitor.
His first chance with Porsche came as the international scholar in Super Cup, didn't it? And that really was a lifeline for him, as so often is the case with racing drivers, difficult to fund their way and to get some stability, and then that opportunity came and he didn't waste it. And the reason he didn't waste it is because, as you quite rightly say, he's a remarkable talent. And then coming here today, 2 wins for the Stuttgart manufacturer under his belt at Le Mans. And he did actually win, looking through the statistics, a one-make gear race around this circuit in 2013. So he does have form. He's without his sparring partner, Laurens Vanthoor, and that's worth pointing out as we go down the grid. Another Porsche mega, Matteo Jaminet, just getting into his 911 GT3R, but we are a 911 GT3R short, and that is because Laurens Vanthoor, who had a bit of an issue yesterday at one of the faster elements of the circuit.
Yeah, really nasty shunt as he ended up striking the barriers on the way through Hotel Mandarin. Just a little bit of a tap, and that was all it took. And the car, unfortunately, is beyond repair in time for the race itself. But the quality and caliber of the grid this year is incredibly strong. Just looking at the names in order of where they're starting on the grid: Augusto Farfus, Raffaele Marcello, Mauro Engel, Eduardo Mortara, Earl Bamber, Robin Freins, Chris Haase, Dries Vanthoor, Mathieu Jaminet, Alexandre Imperatori, Adelaide Fong, Oliver Jarvis, Darrell Young, and Sujie Matsuda. This is a pretty impressive field of 7 rows.
Yeah, and just touching on one of those names you read out, Ollie Jarvis there. My teammate back in 2003, and one of the nicest guys you could ever hope to meet, and he has had a huge amount of success with Audi. Comes here with Nissan, and the Nissan, not the most favoured of cars around here, and not doing them a disservice. It's just the way it is in terms of the performance brakes. But Ollie Jarvis under the KCMG banner and doing a great job in that car. And a car that, you know, Ollie's used to having a roof over his head, but in an LMP1, class car. He's had his experience in GT3 racing with Bentley, but it's fairly limited. Nevertheless, a winner around here in 2007 in the Formula 3 race, and that really did launch his career. And it couldn't have happened, as I said, to a nicer chap.
Can Eduardo Mortara take his 5th FIA GT World Cup victory at Macau and his 7th win of all time around the streets of Macau? This man is absolutely relentless on these streets. He just seems to know them like the back of his hand. He is absolutely dominant when he gets himself into a decent position, but there's all sorts of other factors to take into account here. You've got several drivers who have never done this race before. You've got the likes of Chris Haase, Dries Van Tor, Mathieu Jaminet, Oliver Jarvis, Sugio Matsuda. None of them have even done this race before. So let's talk you through the grid. Augusto Farfus and Raffaello Marcello on the front row of the grid from Mauro Engel, and the king of Macau in a GT, Eduardo Mortara. The third row of the grid will be filled by Earl Bamber and Robin Freins. And then we have Chris Haase along with Dries Van Tor, younger brother, of course, of Laurens, who will be cheering for him, no doubt, from the sidelines. Ninth on the grid is going to be Mathieu Jaminet, the other Porsche newbie, who is the latest French talent for Stuttgart. And then Alexandre Imperatori for Nissan is there on 10th position on the grid. Adelie Fong is there beside Oliver Jarvis in the KCMG run Nissan Nismo GTR. And then the last two on the grid will be Daryl O'Young from nearby Hong Kong, although he's based out in Vancouver, and from Mia in Japan, the 39-year-old Sugio Matsuda, who's won everything from Super GT to Formula Nippon twice over, and of course is most recently noted for being part of the Nissan LMP1 project at Le Mans 3 years ago.
Imperatori running under the Hong Kong banner as well. And those of you that know the area, Hong Kong, just a ferry ride away. Just about to get underway in Macau. And those of you that are tuning in, wherever you are in the world, do get in touch. We're on Twitter at Tom Gaymore, Gaymor, and...
Can't you spell my name yet? At Jake Sanson, S-A-N-S-O-N. Do please chat away. I'm also keeping an eye on the hashtag FIA GT World Cup, so do chat away using that. After not being able to complete yesterday, Vincent Bruins reminds us that Sugio Matsuda has had to start from the back of the grid. And obviously the Mante Porsche was not repairable for Laurens Van Tor, so he is going to be a spectator on the sidelines. So Augusto Farfus sets off on the green flag lap. And this is going to be an interesting one. Can he make it 2 races in as many days that he takes the victory?
And what do you think at home? As I said, get in touch on Twitter, give us a follow, tweet in any questions you may have, any predictions. Uncle Grandpa says, and that's not my Uncle Grandpa, says Raffaele Marciello is his tip for victory. And I have to say, Marciello, and I tweeted this a few days ago, has been absolutely sublime in that Mercedes. He is, of course, the 2018 overall Blancpain champion, and there's not many that managed to get that Mercedes around the racetrack quicker than Raffaele Marciello. He is a former Ferrari Junior, a former FIA Formula 3 Euro Series champion, and you just feel that had he had a bit more backing or some of the breaks gone his way, he's a name, together with the likes of Robin Freins, that may well have popped up into Formula 1, but nevertheless, they found their way into sports car racing, and they've not looked back since they burst onto the scenes.
Kobe Lambeth writes, if you like Talladega, then I'm pretty sure you will enjoy Macau. This race is so underrated. I'm echoing those vibes, mate. This is an absolutely terrific race, and considering how many incredible drivers have passed through the gates of the FIA GT World Cup since it first ran in 2011. You've had some incredible winners, 3 of which are on this very grid. Eduardo Mortara, the winner in 2011, 12, 13 and 17. And then, of course, Laurens Van Tor, who won it back in 2016, upside down, skating down the run to Lisboa on his roof. Very famously indeed. And then, of course, Mauro Engel, who won it twice in 2014 and 15. 3 of those guys taking part in the weekend. Van Tor, sadly, echoing 2017, unfortunately, and not going to be in the finishing results of this race. But the one thing we don't want to have is a repeat of last year, which has now, of course, become one of the most viral videos on the internet of any race ever run at Macau, when we had our 5th place driver into the barriers and everybody from Tom, Dick, Harry, Charlie, Pew Pew, Barley McGrew, Cuthbert, Dibble and Grubb joined them at the scene of the accident on the run to Moorish.
Yeah, 3 red flags in the last 3 editions of this FIA GT World Cup. 2 laps early. It finished in 2015. 45 minutes was the red flag in 2016. And of course, last year's pilot bringing out the red flag for an hour. Let's not tempt fate. I think we already have by mentioning it all.
Well, I'm hoping that the caliber and the quality of the grid, the talent of the drivers on the grid, is going to help us get that a little bit less likely, because we've got some incredible drivers on this grid. We've got Farfus, we've got Marcello, Engel, Mortara, Bamber, Frines, Jaminet, who's coming on strong. There's so many great drivers here.
Yeah, have you ever met a racing driver? I think your confidence could be misplaced here, Jake, but let's hope for the best.
I'm just jolly positive. I can't help it. I'm on the Macau vibe. I've been doing this since Thursday morning, and I've been absolutely loving it. And now I've got the GT World Cup staring in front of me as they come to the line, ready to go green. Here we go, 18 laps of Macau. Get ready to rumble. It's race time, and away we go. Fantastic getaway for Farfus. He's going to squeeze Marcello into the first turn. They go through Reservoir and on the run, down the straight, up through the gears, getting themselves neatly balanced and into position as they head towards the Mandarin turn. Flat on the throttle, maybe a slight blip if you're in the middle of the pack, but keeping the pace on strong. So fast through this section, and now down to Lisboa. Everybody hold your breath and hang on to something. This is a heavy braking point, and you've got to get it right on the first lap. You can't win the race here. You could definitely lose it.
Yeah, slightly better behaved than yesterday. That BMW's not short of a few kilometres in a straight line, isn't it? It led the way down to Lisboa in quite spectacular fashion, and that will bode well for Farfus as this race progresses.
Positive start for everybody in the field then, as Farfus leads the way in the Schnitzer BMW M6. The 35-year-old from Curitiba. Before yesterday, his last major international success was back in the DTM in 2013. And now he is back on top, having taken the victory in Macau, flying the flag for Brazil. And he is now hanging on to the lead here. But Raffaele Marcello, the Italian, inspired by his countryman Gabriele Tarquini lifting the touring car World Cup title a few minutes ago, is going to try and get the Italian flag flying again.
And it was important for the Mercedes drivers not to trip each other up and pretty much hand Farfus a bigger lead into Lisboa on that first lap. They're all fairly well behaved, and Marcello, the young charger, if you like, Maro Engel, who's very much in the mix, a 2-time winner around here. He's more the stalwart, isn't he, of Mercedes. And then you've got Mortara, who arguably is their headline signing. But Farfus and BMW doing a job on the mark at the moment. And it's about getting his knees and elbows out, because we're about to see how much straight line speed he has and whether or not Marcello can make much of an impact on Farfus and the BMW through this first sector on the first flying lap.
Farfus, Marcello and Engel, Mortara, Bamber and Frines, then Haas, Dries Van Tor, Matthew Jiminy, Alexander Imperatori, Fong, Jarvis, Young and Matsuda is the order. I told you how good the quality of the field was. Every single driver in this field has had a best result of a podium finish in any of their categories they've done.
Mortara's going to have a headache here. Sorry to interrupt you, Jake. And El Bamber's not going to need a second invitation to get up the inside into Lisboa. Mortara had to go defensive. Now, this is critical. If Mortara has any hopes of winning this race, he can't afford to let Bamber past in that Porsche. He's got to stay with his teammates. Oh, Bamber's
hit the wall. He's hit the wall big time. That's going to cause a massive amount of damage.
How did he keep it out the wall? I said he's off, because that glance, I mean, that was miraculous that he kept it out of the wall on the outside.
I'm stunned. How is the car not damaged? How is the suspension not broken? But he's carrying on. Absolutely astonishing, and Bamba's he's just brushed it off and gone, okay, that's a bruise, I'm just going to carry on going.
Well, it may be a bruise. We'll wait and see. How did he keep it out of the wall on the outside? That was miraculous.
Astonishing. And Farfus continues to lead with gusto. So Farfus out in front, Marcello in second and Engel third. Bamba is flirting with disaster on lap 2 already.
Well, it just shows how treacherous this circuit is, and especially in these big GT cars. You know, it's a bit like sitting next to your friend who goes just ever so slightly too close to those parked cars when you're on the morning commute into town. And for Bamba there, just flirting with the barriers, getting too close, it's so easy to misjudge that. And firstly, I can't believe that the Porsche doesn't have damage. And secondly, I know I keep saying it, how did he keep it out of that wall? So from a mistake to a miracle, and you can just see here now.
This is how he did it. So he's obviously chasing hard in behind Mortara. Watch this, Bamba just goes in. Car's going to get loose, ready, bang! How did he save that?
And it's the challenge is it's on the passenger side, and that's you know, so difficult to judge. And oh, Bamba there with a rare mistake, but he seems to live to survive another day.
Yeah.
His car, you know, as a racing driver now, that the steering will feel slightly. You just for the next however many minutes, you're just trying to work out what you've got underneath you. Have you got damage? Is the tracking out? So often you have the steering out slightly. You've just got to go with it.
Well, I'll tell you what, the 28-year-old from Wanganui is the luckiest man in Asia right now. He's just basically used his get-out-of-jail-free card, and I'm not sure he's going to get another one quite so easily. But he's had a good season, racing in IMSA and, of course, Bathurst in the 12 hours, did the Le Mans 24 hours, took a victory in the Nordschleife in the VLN series, and even did a round of Virgin Supercars. So he's had a very mixed season campaign, so he's ready for anything. And incredibly, he is still pedaling away in 5th position. There is Mauro Engel. We're watching him as he goes through in the 888 Gruppe M racing car. Double winner of this event. Been 3rd in the last 2 years. And where is he sat at the moment? P3. A little bit frustrating, I gather, for Mauro Engel. But look, Bamba, not only is he still going, he is turning up the wick on Eduardo Mortara in the 777.
Yeah, fascinating battle here for 4th place. On board with Eduardo Mortara's Group M Mercedes. He's got his teammates ahead of him. That's not the order that he would have hoped for heading here to Macau. We have, of course, had qualifying, the qualification race yesterday. Those of you that are new to the format, this is the main race. 18 laps around this iconic circuit. And it's very much the calm before the storm at the moment, isn't it? Farfus and BMW with the advantage over Mercedes and Raffaele Marciello. But if there's anyone that can catch Augusto Farfus, it's Raffaele Marciello. And look, he's not dropping away. And if anything, that's as close as Marciello's been to Farfus over the first couple of laps.
Well, interestingly, other than an International GT Open victory at Monza last year, Farfus had to wait yesterday for his first victory since DTM 2013. His best result of the year in the championship campaign has been a P2 at Brands Hatch. And here, in a much tougher situation, Farfus has just grabbed the steering wheel of the M6 with both hands and has dealt Schnitzer an incredible opportunity here to be in front with a bit of a chase on from Raffaele Marciello in the 999. Based out in Zurich these days, of course, the number 23, the 23-year-old in the 999, flashing the headlights. This is all psychological, getting the blinkers on in the hope that Farfus looks in the mirror at the wrong time and gets dazzled. It never, ever works.
Yeah, it's one of those myths, isn't it? But as a racing driver, you feel that you've got to do all that you can do. And once you've thrown the kitchen sink at it, the last thing is flash the headlights. And as you say, very few punished or pushed into a mistake. Marciello doing what he can now, and that is to really get up into the mirrors of Farfus. Now, what you do is you'll have reference points around the circuit, and Farfus will know that Marciello's catching him. Once he's caught him, the pressure's on. Farfus now will start to feel his presence. He'll see him in the mirrors. You then get sucked into looking in your mirrors more often, and the reason is because Marciello may be diving up the inside, maybe where's he positioning his car. You've got to keep a reference point on the car behind. There'll be elements of the circuit where Farfus will try and put Marciello's pressure to the back of his mind and just switch off from looking in his mirrors and try and focus with going forward. As the lead car, you've got to keep focusing on where you're going. Try and forget the car behind you and focus on your rhythm and break away. Otherwise, you just get sucked into that sort of defensive mindset and you can never really break away. But this is now where the BMW is strong. And look, I said it at the beginning, it's not short of a few horsepower, and it's really stretching its legs down to Lisboa.
Yeah, Marciello's able to gain the ground in sectors 2 and 3, where the mechanical grip of the Mercedes is really starting to come into its own. But in the straight and narrow, that Schnitzer BMW has just got so much grunt. And when you get up the hill to San Francisco here, this is obviously going to be a very, very tricky part of the course to hang on to. So the Mercedes is going to start to chip away at it. And this is where he really starts to get good here as they go through maternity, back on the power, up towards Teddy Yip. And this is where Marciello can really start to get under the scalp of Augusto Farfus a little bit here. Try to get into his head and start to poke out a little bit from the racing line, start to weave around behind him, looking for a move that isn't there, to the right, to the left, in the hope that Farfus is looking in his rearview mirrors at exactly the wrong moment for the Brazilian, and he'll react to it, break his rhythm, and that's where Marciello can get in and get the position away.
The frustrating point for Marciello is you can't really, unless Farfus makes a Horlicks of it, get past here. And what Farfus will start to realise, if this is the case, is that he can actually drive his own race through and up the mountain and then rely on the straight line speed of the BMW in sectors 3 and sectors 1, and he'll start to feel comfortable with the package underneath him.
So out in front, this is all about Augusto Farfus just trying to measure the race. It's a long race, let's not forget this. It's a long circuit and it's a long old race, 18 laps. It's a proper tough competition, and all it takes is one error in judgment, one blink of an eye and one slight error, and it's going to change the face of this race. So it's a properly tough challenge, and any GT driver worth their salt wants to win this. This is not going to be won in the first 5 laps.
Interesting for me, Mortara just doesn't have the pace of Raffaele Marciello and Mauro Engel. Now, it is a long race, and, you know, there's time for Mortara to come back. But if anything, it's Mortara that's holding up Bamber here. And Bamber, you feel, if he could just get past the black Mercedes, may have a bit more pace underneath him. But he just can't quite get close enough for a look up the inside into Lisboa, and Mortara just can't find the rhythm to get up to the back of Mauro Engel and Raffaele Marciello.
Yeah, that all comes back to getting a good exit out of Fisherman's and out of R, because that's where you build the momentum on the way through Reservoir at the left, through Mandarin at the right, and then down in towards Lisboa. It's a very tricky part of the course to get right, the latter part of that Sector 4. We saw in the Formula 3 race last year how that battle came down to the very final lap, and we saw Habsburg going into the barriers with Sergio Sette Camara, and that race is coming up after this one, don't forget. So there is a Macau Formula 3 Grand Prix to come, but it's such a difficult race to measure, especially when it's this long and the cars have got so much power. We talk about threading the needle. This is a very tall order. The winner of this race will be worth their weight in gold after this. Up the climb to Moorish once again. And still, so far so good for Eduardo Mortara. Entered as treble 7, of course carrying the number 1 as the winner last year. But this man has been there and done it all at Macau. Twice a winner of the Macau Grand Prix in Formula 3. and 4 times a winner in the GT World Cup race. He did it in 2011, 12, 13 and 17. He has been here every single year since the first race back in 2011. He's the only one on the grid who has.
And that's what surprises me about his pace at the moment. Just not quite there to push up to Mauro Engel and Raffaele Marciello, but still plenty of laps to come.
And he's had a very strong DTM campaign this year, of course. He took 2 victories at the Lausitz-Ring and the Norris-Ring, respectively. So it's not exactly as if the Porsche GT3R has been the car he's been in all season long. If anything, he's had a very mixed bag, because he's done Formula E this year. He's been at both the Spa and the Nürburgring 24 hours in this car, of course, but he's done the VLN at the Nordschleife. So when you have such a mixed program, it's not always a guarantee you're going to jump into the car you know on the circuit you know and be invincible, because you've got so much on your plate and of course of your diary. You're jumping from car to car, especially when you're jumping from a DTM into a GT car. Very different beasts. And then a Formula E car, which is about as far away from those cars as it's possible to get in every single respect. So it's difficult, because you look at it on paper and go, well, Mortara's won this race 4 times. Clearly he's the favourite. But you've got to do the work on the day.
Yep, spot on. And for Eduardo Mortara, he's got plenty of work to do. I just can't believe how quick that BMW is down the straight. I mean, the Mercedes is a big car, and we've all seen the memes on social media about how big the M6 is. And if you haven't, get busy and find them. They're quite amusing. They're mainly aimed at the World Endurance car, of course, but nevertheless, this M6 is the GT3 version, and it's a big old machine, especially compared to the Audi R8, for example, and the Porsche 911, but it's very, very quick in a straight line. And for Raffaele Marciello, that'll be really frustrating. There's nothing more annoying than having a toolkit that won't do the job. And what I mean by that is it's all very well being quick in the middle sector, and that would have totally cemented Raffaele Marciello's pole lap, for example, in qualifying, because that's the longest sector. It's the sector where you spend the most amount of time. They're the slower corners. But of course, in the race, if you can't challenge for track position, so if you can't pass the car in front and that car is quick in a straight line, it becomes ever so frustrating for the driver. And Marciello will be willing his car along the straights here, but Farfus and that Schnitzer BMW looking good. Schnitzer, as I was trying to say at the beginning of the show before I tripped over my tongue, are no strangers to this Macau circuit. They've been here with BMW for many years.
Oh, and
a
mistake for Marciello. He's got straight in. He's gone into the barriers at Lisboa. Oh, Marciello is the first one to make a mistake. He locks up under brakes into Lisboa, and once you go that deep into the corner, it's game over for the victory.
And do you know what that mistake was born of? The frustration of not being able to keep with the BMW in a straight line. So what do you do if you're Raffaele Marciello? You try and make that time up under the brakes. He's desperately been trying to keep with that BMW to keep the pressure on through and up the mountain. He was overdriving the car in the braking zone into Lisboa to try and gain back the time that he'd lost in a straight line, and the frustration for Raffaele Marciello has now boiled over. Look, he braked too late, way too late.
Yeah, very stereotypical mistake there, unfortunately, into Lisboa for Raffaele Marciello. Doesn't make the result any easier a pill to swallow. But up to second now comes Mauro Engel in behind Augusto Farfus, and Mauro Engel has failed to finish off the podium since 2014. Farfus leading, Engel second and Mortara third. Mortara has finished every single race at Macau in the FIA GT World Cup since 2011. This is a replay from looking back at Marciello. He's just going to disappear. Bye-bye. sorry, Augusto, I don't want to play anymore. Well, I do, but I'm not going to be able to. And that's a very stereotypical kind of mistake to make there, unfortunately, when the pressure cooker is sky high. Farfus leading the way. Maro Engel now second. He's been third in the previous 2 seasons. The previous 2 years before that, he won. So it's up to Maro Engel to go and get his 3rd win on the streets of Macau in the FIA GT World Cup.
That'll bring a wry smile to Augusto Farfus's face, and he knows that he's got one hand on this winner's trophy. It doesn't matter if Engel catches him, because catching and passing is 2 different things. And he'll have the same problem, Maro Engel, that Raffaele Marciello had, and that is you can put Augusto Farfus under all the pressure you like going up the mountain, but unless you can position yourself to be able to get a toe or try and challenge somehow Farfus into Lisboa, then you're not going to be able to capitalise on your pace. You're not going to be able to push that BMW out of position. And now Farfus can just settle into his rhythm, not take any risks. And you can just, it feels like he's on a Sunday drive here on board. He's not, of course, one of the greatest drivers in GT driving, in GT racing. You know, Augusto Farfus now showing us how it's done and how tight this Macau circuit is.
You know, I've said it for quite a few years now. Augusto Farfus is one of the most underrated drivers of the last 10 years. He's got bags of talent, lots of charisma. He's an amazing character, a stonking professional athlete, and he just seems to be dealt a raw hand of cards at times. He's one of those guys who's so nice, almost too nice to be a racing driver, but he's able to utilize every opportunity he can get a hold of. Don't forget that he won the title in the Nürburgring 24 Hours in the E1 EXP2 category 2 years running, and won the S1 class in 2008 as well. So he's won the 24 Hours of Nürburgring in different classes 3 times. Won the Euro 3000 title in 2003. He was 3rd in the World Touring Car Championship 2 years over, and he's been a winner in the 24 Hours of Dubai in the A6 category as well 7 years ago. So the guy knows pretty much everything there is to know about winning in international competitions.
Yeah, don't forget, he beat Gianamir Bruni to that 3000 title. Nicky Pastorelli as well. Farfus, another single-seater convert, going well in the GT arena, but came to that GT arena through the touring car scene, and BMW have been the platform, the vehicle, if you like, for his success. And you know, he owes a lot to them, and he's repaying it here in Macau. Still 9 laps to go, but Farfus and BMW looking very strong indeed.
Is that Imperatori having made his way past the Mercedes in 10th? I think it is. I think Imperatori's made an overtaking move there in the Nissan. He's managed to get the move there on the treble 9 of Marciello, because Marciello was in front of him, I think, when he recovered. Marciello has caught up to the back of Imperatori, and now Marciello is trying to come through into 9th position just to salvage something from this race. Let's not forget, this is his 2nd appearance at the FIA GT World Cup. Last year, he was one of the cars caught up in that mega pile-up, so he didn't really get a chance to show what he could do. He's been in potential position to win this race, and seen him make a mistake and throw it away. Half distance, 9 laps done, 9 to go. But Marciello will want to try and salvage something from this race and at least pull off a good couple of choice moves. So Imperatori is there in front of the 999 of Marciello. Somebody call the police, because he has just gone through Moorish up towards Donna Maria. Imperatori still hanging on in front of Marciello. The difficulty now, of course, is that Raffaele Marciello is clearly the faster man between him and Alexander Imperatori, but there's no way through at any point until he gets to Lisboa.
Yeah, Imperatori will just be able to hear the Muttley style, Dick Dastardly style mutterings coming out of Marciello's Mercedes as he closes up behind, because it is, you know, if it's not, if you don't laugh, you'll cry if you're Raffaele Marciello. But He really will sound like Dick Dastardly underneath that helmet.
Good analogy. That's old school. Over the line again.
Wacky Races, one of my favourite cartoons.
Me too.
Of all time.
Me too. It's on my iPad.
Never too old to admit that.
Out of the first corner, flying down the stretch towards that incredible Hotel Mandarin corner. It's one of the toughest corners in motorsport. Never mind of any street track you're ever going to go on. And down the straight, Marcello's going to try and line up Imperatori. Imperatori's going to defend. Down to the braking zone. Swarming around. He's going to have to back out of it. Marcello is obviously feeling the heat and the frustration here behind Alexander Imperatori. Flashing of the blinkers once again. Do you know what? I think Raffaele Marcello may have a bit of an addiction to that particular button on his dashboard.
Well, he'll be getting rather tired of the record that's playing in the back of his mind, and that is he doesn't have the straight line speed to challenge down into Lisboa, be it a BMW or a Nissan. And that will really be frustrating Marcello, because he's got a great armoury of weapons. He just can't use any of them.
Meanwhile, Mauro Engel has seen that with no Marcello in front of him, he can go for the victory himself. And this is where the race really starts, because Farfus has been controlling the pace out front. He's not wanted to push the car too hard. He needs to look after tyres, brakes, engine. Everything needs to be just so. But Mauro Engel is now the chaser. He's the one who's basically going to start to eat into Farfus's advantage. Bamber going very deep into Melko. I thought he was going to have another rub against the barriers there. He's got away with it once. He certainly doesn't want to use up all of his 9 lives.
So Farfus will have been awaiting the arrival of the next Mercedes, and that's Mauro Engel. Mortara's caught right up to the back of his teammate now, so Mortara playing the strategy game, maybe conserving tyres for later on, but Farfus has the advantage. It's whether or not those tyres can hold on through the quicker corners, and he can maintain that straight line speed down to Lisboa. And as you can see, there is Farfus and Engel and Mortara flashing through with Bamber not too far behind. Yeah.
Did you see Frines just rub the barrier as he came through Hotel Mandarin there? So
I don't think he touched it. I think he just got so close to it that the dust that sits underneath it flicked up.
Well, that is as close as you can come to striking the barrier without actually making contact with it. He flirted with the white line on the edge of the road there.
Well, racing drivers tend to say you don't have close or very close. You either have touching or not touching. And he was still in the not touching parameter. But yeah, it's a fascinating way of looking at it, isn't it?
Only just. Dear, oh dear. And that has given Haase a little bit of a chance to close up, because he's seen that. He's seen that Frines has got a little bit wide and gone right. He seems to be having a little bit of an issue with pressure now. So I'm going to start to catch up with him, thanks. This is going to be interesting in the last 6.5 laps of the race, because now that Mauro Engel has been cleared away from Marcello, he's going to charge after Farfus. This is going to take a long time to develop, and it's all going to be about brain power, mentality, concentration. And even if this doesn't end up changing positions, it's fascinating to observe. If you want pinball wizards, then what you need to do is get yourself to a stock car circuit. These are some of the best drivers in the world, battling on one of the toughest racetracks in the world, in the best GT cars you're ever going to be given racing drivers. So this is going to be about intrigue, about strategy, about cool, calculated concentration.
Farfus will know, he's experienced enough. If he just keeps to his rhythm, he's found a good rhythm. It doesn't matter what the others do, because once he gets to the elements of the circuit where he can flex his muscles, they can't match him. So he doesn't need, and I don't think, having seen what Mercedes have in their armoury with plenty of laps of Marcello in his wing mirrors, I don't think he'll be too fussed that Engel has caught him. If I was Farfus, I would have expected that and known that if I can just continue my rhythm in the areas of the circuit where he can't pass and he's fast, and not make a mistake in this part of the circuit where the BMW is good, then you're really looking odds-on favourite to keep that position.
You know what, Tom? Engel isn't just catching Farfus, Mortara is slowly starting to chip away at both of them now.
Yeah, Mortara's come into the play, hasn't he? Sort of said a lap or two ago. It'll be interesting to see if Mortara catches Engel on the next lap, whether or not there'll be, I wouldn't say team orders, and I don't think there will be, but, you know, is it worth saying, well, you know, Engel can't find the way past, so maybe give Eduardo Mortara a go. But is Mortara's right foot any larger than Maro Engel's in that Mercedes? Because if Mortara passes Engel, Engel will just say, well, he's going to have the same problem that I've had, and, you know, you can be as quick as you like in this element. But the Mercedes don't seem to have the straight line speed of the BMW.
No, that's the problem. And the thing is, if you were to let him go and have a crack at it, well, what has he got that Maro Engel doesn't? They've got identical Mercedes AMG GT3s. So I think it's basically going to be, they're going to have to almost go back to their karting days in a sense. They're going to have to work together to get the pressure cooker onto Farfus and try and get under his skin a little bit. But that's not easy around here because you've got to focus on your rhythm, you've got to focus on your apexes, which do change a couple of millimeters depending on your tire life, depending on how much rubber is laid down on the road, depending on how much focus you've got to bring to each part of the course at each particular time. You know, this circuit develops as a long race like this unfolds.
Yeah, failing that, you just hope that the BMW launches itself.
That's very true.
Eduardo Mortara, and I hate to be blunt, but things like that will start to go through your mind.
You'll listen to every bang, you'll listen to every strange sound from the gearbox, and you'll think, was that me or was that him up the road?
Listen to this now on board, absolutely flat through the first left-hander.
Let's stay with him through the right. Is he lifting?
Mandarin, yeah, breathing out of the throttle.
You blend out of the throttle and then get straight back on it as you turn in.
Yeah, you just need to get that rake in the car, otherwise the car will push from the midpoint of the corner on.
This is definitely a three-way fight now because we've only got 5 laps to go, and this is all about which of these drivers' concentration is going to snap first. At the moment, Farfus is just controlling the pace. If you're Augusto Farfus, you do not want to push too hard because at the end of the day, these are GT cars. You can make them pretty wide if you need to. And with 5 laps to go, he's looked after the tyres well. He's not been pushing harder than he needs to. He's just kept the rhythm nice and smooth. He's got very close to the wall, but he's never got too close to it that he's have to start panicking. These Mercedes are in a little bit of a stumbling block here. This is Augusto Farfus's race to lose, and he knows it. El Bamba's starting to close up on these 3 as well, so we could end up with a quartet at the end of the race.
Yeah, Farfus will be aware of the bigger picture here as Frins just gets a little bit of oversteer from the midpoint to the exit there, but Farfus will be aware that Engel's under pressure from Mortara, and if those two start to fight, it's only going to help Farfus's cause, and Mortara will be aware of that as well. He'll want to get past his teammate, but you know, if he makes too much of an effort to do so, then they're going to lose sight of Farfus, and with only a handful of laps to go, that'll just be conceding victory too early for their liking. So, you know, we saw how close Engel was at the hairpin, at the Melco hairpin. And now we've gone through Fisherman's and R-Bend. We'll be into the first turn here, and you can just see the Mercedes starting to drop back. Let's listen to Farfus through Mandarin. Flat. There you go.
Not even a blip of the throttle. The car's just got enough grip through the turn and enough bite. That's
really interesting, because the Mercedes was having to breathe out, or the Mercedes of Mortara was certainly breathing out. He didn't feel he had the front end to, and it's not oversteer, it's actually the front that he was worried about, Mortara. And Farfus absolutely nailed. That's interesting, isn't it?
Yeah, this circuit is all about confidence, and their setup just gives Farfus everything he needs to get on with this. He has yet to take a victory at Macau in a GT. This is actually his third visit. He got a P5 in 2014, and he was 4th last year. He has yet to be on the podium of an FIA GT World Cup race, never mind win it, and he is literally 3.5 laps away from sealing that deal.
And that was very much the commentator's curse, brought to you by Jake Sanson.
Thank you, Tom. I really do apologise to every Brazilian watching in the world if anything were to strike now. I will send you all a care package. But up towards Donna Maria. The BMW looks well planted. Mauro Engel and Eduardo Mortara, who both know how to win this race. They've both done it at least twice. Engel has done it on 2 occasions. Mortara's done it on 4 in GTs and twice in an F3. So what they don't know about winning this race isn't worth knowing. But Farfus is just soaking it up. He's just controlling the pace.
Sorry to interrupt, Jay. This corner's really tricky here. Fisherman's looks fairly innocuous, but it's really easy to just get in there too deep and not to get a good run up to the final corner here. Arben.
And now onto the main straight once again. Earl Bamber is catching these guys. And if anybody's going to be brave and go for a lunge into Lisboa on the last lap when he's got an opportunity to, it's going to be Earl Bamber, because he has a history of pulling off an overtaking move out of thin air. He's really good at this. He started it in his Porsche Super Cup days. People were never expecting him to get into the fray, and all of a sudden he just catches you unawares. And if anybody's going to break into this podium and spoil the BMW Mercedes romping away, the Bamber is going to get the podium if he gets a chance.
Well, we've seen by his earlier antics that Porsche's built to last. It's probably got wishbones and push rods like goalposts to withstand the impact with the barriers that it had earlier on. And yeah, the Audi team looking on, they're not at the races, unfortunately. Their top car, Robin Frins, down in 5th, ahead of Christopher Haas. And he's done a good job, hasn't he? Started on the 4th row of the grid, started down in 9th, made his way up to 6th on his first, as you said, at the top of the coverage, Jake, his first experience of this Macau circuit.
The famous Charlie Lamb was watching on there, hoping that his golden boy, the lone representative for BMW this weekend. They only brought 1 car to the event, but they were confident. Give it to Augusto and he will put on a show. But Engel is catching, and as they continue to run in formation, Mortara closes up on those 2, and as the 3 of them tighten up, Bamber in the Porsche closes up on them. This is going to be a nail-biting final 2 laps, as up towards Melko, Engel's getting closer.
Now, Engel was just trying to bully Farfus there. There's no way he can get up the inside.
But he's not allowed to.
Yeah, and the reason he's not allowed to is because if he did, he'd run out of lock on the exit, and we'd have a car park.
So up towards Fisherman's once again. Delicate on the throttle. The car can snap away very easily here. Up on the throttle once again and into our bend. There'll be 2 laps to go when they come through this time by. And it's all going to be about who blinks first. Farfus has just got to keep the rhythm, got to keep the pace. Engel, Mortara and Bamber know that the only thing that counts here is a win. They will be patient enough to get the job done. They've both done it before. Earl Bamber has yet to finish on the podium himself. He's going to keep pushing all the way down towards the Mandarin. 2 laps to go.
Well, Mortara was breathing out of the throttle again. Bamber not close enough. So we've said a lot about Mercedes' straight line speed. Well, the Porsche not able to match the Mercedes down there, even with a tow. So Bamber will be frustrated with that. But as you say, he won't need a second invitation if he's to get a sniff of the podium. He's going to take it. And Mortara will have to be aware of what's going on behind. The problem that Bamber has is obviously Mortara's got the giant toe from Engel. So that will be hampering Bamber's chances, because had Mortara not had the toe, so had it been earlier in the race, we saw Bamba closer to the back of the Mercedes, and that was because Mortara had dropped back from his teammates, but now he's closed back up to Engel. It's certainly helping his ability to defend from the Porsche.
It doesn't feel like this race has been going on for 39 minutes, does it? It's just flown by. And that's because when you're watching masters of their craft at work, dancing from apex to apex on a circuit as treacherous as this, it really is quite incredible. You get lost in the mastery of it.
You'd get lost driving around this circuit. I think it's so long.
Totally would. I got lost just driving the simulator, mate. You obviously were spying in on me. I did actually do some laps in a GT car to get in my mindset for this. And I wouldn't even make the qualifying session, to be honest.
You'd be on the road to the right.
Yeah, I'd be on the bridge over there with the buses. You know me so well, Tom. Into the final corner and going into the last lap. Farfus has just got to do it for a few more miles. He's doing a perfect job of keeping this on the straight and narrow. Engel, Mortara and Bamba have got to do something pretty special to stop Charlie Lamb and Augusto Farfus taking the trophies back to BMW.
This is going to be a big 6 kilometers for Augusto Farfus, and Mercedes have to challenge down into Lisboa. They're not close enough. They move out because of the big bump on their left as you come into the braking zone through Lisboa now, and you start the climb up through San Francisco towards Maternity Bend. It really is uphill. If you've ever done a track walk around Macau, you'll know you've been on a bit of a march by the end of it. And the BMW crew looking on Mercedes. Have they got anything left in their armory?
I think it's going to be a case of too little, too late. They've just got to hope that something goes wrong. But as far as Augusto Farfus is concerned, this is just keep doing what you're doing and what you have been doing for the last 40.5 minutes. Augusto Farfus is bringing this home. It's looking good for the moment. P5 in 2014, P4 when he returned last year. But looking at the talent of the grid and the fact that we've got the Mercedes contingent, the Audi contingent, the Porsche contingent here, and the Nissans, the one lone BMW was probably not on the mindset of people to win this.
Yeah, well, the reason being is it's not that strong through the important part of the lap. Now, if you look at his fastest lap, it's still, say, 0.3 off the likes of Robin Frins down in 5th place. Half a second off Mortara's fastest lap of the race, but it's quick where it matters. Once he got the track position, he hasn't looked back.
Maro Engel hoping to tempt fate and give Augusto Farfus a bit of a break in concentration a la Ferdinand Habsburg last year, but it's not going to happen as far as he's concerned. Into the final turn, just as he did yesterday. It's 2 out of 2 in 2 consecutive days. Augusto Farfus wins the FIA GT World Cup for BMW Team Schnitzer, and Charlie Lamb and the boys down in the pits are euphoric. Every other manufacturer bought 3 cars with them. BMW, this is a Lone Ranger effort, and it's a mammoth effort to take the victory.
I don't think they had enough drivers. Those other factory drivers out in Shanghai, of course, where they're still under red flag conditions. But now for the Schnitzer squad, and you could see the emotion.
Well, this is Charlie Lamb's last race. He announced 2 months ago that after very nearly 50 years with BMW, enough is enough. And what a way to bow out. And that's what it means to Augusto and the whole team. This is going to be remembered for a heck of a long time by everybody involved in BMW. Augusto Farfus very nearly stalling it on the slowing down lap. He's celebrating so much.
Special moment for Augusto Farfus. And this circuit is a special circuit. It's one of the tracks that any driver wants to add to their resume in terms of race wins. If you win around Macau, people's eyes prick up because it means you're something special. Augusto Farfus has conquered the fight between the German manufacturers and BMW got one up there on BMW.
What a way to end this season.
Well, I mean, I'm speechless. I mean, this place is, you know, when you come from Bavaria and when you race in Macau, like the first time 38 years ago, and you have the chance with BMW to participate in this race, which is the last race in my time with Schnitz. I mean, and then to have Augusto and to perform so well, and then even though the race there was not any passing, but it was every second you needed to be spot on, and you couldn't allow the slightest mistake. And well, like one of the very good moments, and I had many of them, but this was one. Thank you.
Congratulations, enjoy.
Charlie's going to remember this for a long,
I had down to
long time.
Winners, yeah.
What a way to bow out at the top. Absolutely fantastic. A win around Macau is massive. It's like Indianapolis to the Americans, like Bathurst to the Australians, like Monaco to the Europeans, like Talladega to the NASCAR fraternity. You win around here, you are one of the very best in the world. Well done, Augusto. Just look at the emotion that's pouring off him. Not a lot of that is sweat, I guarantee you. A lot of that is pure emotion. Tears of joy as it sinks in that Augusto Farfus joins the Hall of Fame of incredible world-class drivers to have won around the streets of Macau. An amazing achievement for an amazing bloke. Emotions running high here at Macau as Augusto Farfus drives the BMW M6 to victory on the streets of Macau. Thank you, Charlie, for everything. 5 decades of motorsport wizardry. For him, this is very special too, because as a team, you want to win at Macau as well as a driver. Stefan Rattel right there with him. And there we go. Farfus climbs the M6 onto the roof. And that's what it means to win at Macau. You go in here, you are one of the very, very best racing drivers on the planet.
Brazilian colours on the side of his helmet, and very, very proud nation, the Brazilians, and quite rightfully so. What a marvellous place, and what a marvellous array of talent they produced for the motorsport world to enjoy. Augusto Farfus putting his name amongst the greats after that win.
Well, considering that there have not been many Brazilians to win around the streets of Macau before, 2 of the big names that have done so will have been his inspiration as a youngster. Mauricio Gugelmin being one, the other, Ayrton Senna.
Alexandre Legui there waiting to grab a word with Augusto, going through the handshakes. It's a team game, and Augusto Farfus thanking each and every one of his crew that have made this happen, because without them, he would not have been able to have driven his chariot to victory.
What a brilliant, brilliant race this is. What a brilliant result. It may not be the most tense and bumper bashing race you're ever going to see, but when you realize, when you know how tough it is to get a GT3 car around here at Macau, you know just how hard these guys have had to work to keep the concentration up for that 40 minutes. It's very tough indeed. Chief mechanic there for Augusto Farfus. That's such a big win. And that's going down on Farfus's CV forever and ever and ever. Amen. Absolutely brilliant. So now we get to find out what it was that got Augusto Farfus to the victory in the first place. Yes, the car was good. Yes, the setup was brilliant. Yes, his control was brilliant. But come on, guys, we all know it's down to the floppy hairdo, isn't it?
High emotions down here. Congratulations, Augusto. You made a fantastic day yesterday and turned it into a win here in Macau. Of all places to do it, congratulations.
Yeah, well, I'm a little bit out of words. Has been a long year. Has been a difficult one, but we made it. Bye.
Just how much pressure did you feel from behind?
A lot, because the guys, they were fast. And today I could not get the tires to work as yesterday. So I was the entire race on the limit. I even clipped the wall trying to squeeze everything. But car was great. We had a great team, thanks to BMW, Team Schnitzer, to Charlie, my family at home. It is a beautiful way to finish the year. We are world champions.
Congratulations, well done.
When you win in this race, it really is something special. Charlie Lamb goes out as the best. Everyone's going to miss him. He has been to the world of GT and touring car racing what Ross Brawn has been to Formula One. Without him, the sport would be very, very poorer. Here's confirmation of the result. Augusto Farfus taking the victory by just under a second to Mauro Engel. Eduardo Mortara in third from Earl Bamber. Freins and Haase in the two Audis, a long way back. Jaminet in seventh from Dries van Tor, who brought his Audi home in eighth position. And then rounding out the top 10, Raffaele Marcello fighting his way back and eventually getting past Alexandre Imperatori. But he so nearly could have been on the podium himself. Adderley Fong, Oliver Jarvis, Tsujiya Matsuda and Darrell O'Young all make it to the flag, which is pretty good going considering how tough it is here at Macau. And considering what happened 12 months ago, that is just about the perfect retaliation.
Yeah, BMW knocking Mercedes off their crown. And I'm sure there will be a few celebrations in the casinos tonight.
Yes, indeed. More money goes through the casinos at Macau than goes through the casinos at Las Vegas. And tonight, there's going to be a party if you wear BMW T-shirts. Here's how the race unfolded. Farfus needed to get the perfect start to Marcello, squeezed him exactly at the right moment as they went through Reservoir. And from there on in, it was very nearly game over for Bamber. How that Porsche stood up to the task of being struck into by a wall, we'll never know. Marcello did everything he could to get under the skin of Farfus, but in the end, it was Marcello who blinked. Overshot into Lisboa, and it was game over for him. Engel, Mortara and Bamber took up the challenge, but nobody was going to stop Augusto Farfus, Charlie Lamb and the Schnitzer BMW team taking victory on the streets of Macau. A lovely retirement present for Charlie, and Augusto Farfus joins the greats who have won on the streets of Macau. He is the GT World Cup champion.
Yeah, it's been a brilliant GT World Cup. Those motorsport fans that have stayed up or are watching around the world, you've still got the Formula 3 race to come. The Macau Grand Prix, that comes up in a couple of hours. And after this podium, we will, of course, go across to Shanghai. The 6 hours of the FIA World Endurance has just got underway.
But first of all, let's bring onto the podium in reverse order the top three
after two red flags. But the podium here in Macau still to come.
In second place, Mauro Engel. And the winner for the second time this weekend for BMW, Augusto Farfus. Now the national anthem of the winning driver. Could I call onto the podium the representative of the winning manufacturer, Charlie Lamb for BMW. And the national anthem of the winning manufacturer.
Augusto Farfus now adding to his tally of wins on the streets of Macau. Of course, he had two
to make the
World Touring
presentation
Car
of
Championship
the
wins
trophy
around the streets of
to
Macau.
the third place finisher, Eduardo Matara.
So that is now 4 victories total.
Cunha, director of SJM, please.
He's on the run for Rob Huff's tally, isn't he?
And Eduardo Mortara's.
Present the laurel and magnificent Macau trophy to Eduardo Matara.
Yet again on the podium for Eduardo Matara. That is the 6th time he has done so in the GTs.
To present the trophy to second place finisher Mauro Engel, please could I ask Ms. Angela Leong, Managing Director and Chief Administrative Officer of SJM.
A second place finish for Mauro Engel. And again, that is the 5th time he has been on the podium here in the FIA GT World Cup, and the 5th year in a row.
To our race winner, to our Augusto Farfus Jr., please, Dr. Ambrose So, Chairman of the Board of Directors of SJM.
For the 4th time, Augusto Farfus stands on the top step of the podium at Macau, and he shares it with the legendary Charlie Lamb, who will pick up the Constructors' Trophy.
Thank you very much.
Farfus does it again. 4 wins at Macau now for the Brazilian. And I'm fairly sure it's just him, Mauricio Gugelmin, and Ayrton Senna from Brazil who have won at Macau. And Farfus has now won it 3 times more than Gugelmin and Senna. Another gripping race, and in 12 months' time, they'll do it all again, of course, here on the streets of Macau. But what a fantastic race that was. Really nail-biting stuff, and good to see that the best racing drivers in the world, in the best GT cars in the world, can still hack it here at Macau.
Drivers and Charlie Lamb, please stay where you are, but the presenters, please leave the podium. We now have the next trophy to be presented, which is the FIA GT World Cup for Drivers, a trophy presented by the FIA, governing body of motorsport, to be presented to Augusto Farfus Jr. by Monsieur Frédéric Bertrand, Director of Circuit Racing Championships Department for the FIA.
So here we are. This is the one that they've been waiting for. Monsieur Bertrand is going to hand the trophy to Augusto Farfus, the FIA GT World Cup for Drivers.
Trophy and the garland for Augusto Farfus Jr.
That one's going to look brilliant on the mantelpiece. And now to Charlie Lamb. What a way to end an amazing and illustrious career. If you haven't watched the movie Adrenaline yet, put it on your Amazon wish list. Get Santa to bring it to your house on Christmas Eve, because I promise you, that is one hell of a watch. And you'll understand just how much Charlie Lamb has given to the world of motorsport.
Winning Manufacturers Trophy to be presented by, on behalf of the Macau Grand Prix Organising Committee, to be presented to Charlie Lamb, representing BMW Motorsport legend, by Mr. Charles Lowe, Chairman of the Automobile General Association of Macau, China. Charles Lowe, to make that presentation.
So there we are. Here comes Mr. Lowe, and he will give the Manufacturers Trophy to Charlie Lamb, the last trophy after very nearly 50 years of service.
I don't know that Charlie Lamb can actually
BMW.
handle that many trophies.
An absolutely fantastic end to an illustrious career. He bows out, as he should have done, on the top step of the podium.
Thank you very much, sir.
At Macau.
Charles Lowe leaves the podium.
So 12 months from now, we'll do it all again. And it's been a very successful weekend indeed for the FIA GT World Cup. So we will do it once more. But we'll leave the drivers and Charlie Lamb on the podium, getting busy with the fizzy here at Macau.
The champagne.
A fantastic end to the year for these drivers as they get very, very wet indeed on the podium at Macau.
Let's see if we can have a word with
Augusto Farfus triumphant then. 4 race wins now in Macau to add to the 2 he took in World Touring Cars several years ago. He is now the most successful Brazilian around the streets of Macau. From myself, Jake Sanson and Tom Gaymore, stick around in a couple of hours' time. We'll have the 65th running of the Macau Grand Prix. Who's the next one on the way to Formula One? You'll find out in a couple of hours' time.
Today in Win.